Hello everyone, it's Doris Colgate with Steve Colgate on the dock with our hashtag Dockside Chats with Steve. So one of the most exciting times in Steve's life was getting on board Nirvana, a Maxi ocean racer. So how did that start, Steve?
Well, you and I were over in Greece leading the flotilla in 1982. That's almost 40 years ago. And I got a call a bit earlier from Marvin Green, who owned Nirvana, and he asked me, "Would you like to race in Malta on Nirvana?" And the 81-foot Maxi, I'd never been on board a boat that size in my life, and he said, "I'd like you to start the boat." Well, the reason I think he said that was because we raced against him in Long Island Sound when Doris and I had Sleuth, and we did one great start. In fact, so starting was one of the things that I think I did very well on Sleuth. And we had one that he was in the same race, and I think he saw it and thought, oh, maybe Steve could help me start races. So he invited me to come to Malta, and it turns out that we finished our flotilla on a Friday, I believe, and that allowed me to fly to Malta on Saturday, and the racing was going to start on Sunday. At the same time, Doris's father was getting a very, very prestigious award in microbiology. What was it?
Biochemistry.
Biochemistry in Italy, and so Doris flew to Italy the same time I went to Malta. So that's the way it turned out. It was very propitious that it worked that way. And so I get to Malta and on a Saturday afternoon, and I go to the yacht club where I heard that there was going to be starting from, and met some of the spouses of the crew, and they said, "Well, Nirvana's out practicing now." And I said, "Well, do you know where the starting line is?" And they said, "Oh yeah, look at there. There's a starting line." It was right from the club, right across, maybe a mile away, to another point where there was a little old artifact, and that was the other end of the starting line. And it was a pretty short line, I thought, for no, it wasn't a mile, but it was maybe half a mile. But it seemed like a pretty short line for, I think, all of the boats were going to start at the same time, some 30 or 40 boats at the same time. So I went back to the hotel, and I didn't sleep a wink that night thinking about this start. And I get down to the boat the next day, and Marvin says to me, he must be sort of a mystic or something, because he said, I'm not asking you to steer the boat at the start, I'm just asking you to tell me where to go. I'll steer the boat at the start. And he did it every start, he would steer the boat. And so the 5-minute gun goes, there's 5 minutes to go, and we're heading, and on Sleuth, it had a perfect start, just kept on going on starboard, out the harbor. But on this boat, it was so fast, in very light winds, that we were going to be about 3 minutes early. And so I turned to Peter Bowker, who was a navigator, and said, "Peter, can you go up into that?" There were a bunch of little boats up in an inlet that were milling around, and if they then hit that end of the line, they might be able to get out in one tack, out of the harbor in one tack or two tacks. And so I said, "Is there water up there?" And he said, "Yes." So I said, "Marvin, let's tack over to port." We tacked over to port, went right up there, and then I had another revelation that might makes right, that when you have a 71-footer, and all these boats were on starboard tacks going towards the starting line, and you have a 71-footer, they just scattered all on starboard.
81.
81-footer. And they just scattered. So we then turned around, got on starboard tack, well up in there, and hit the starting line perfectly, right at that far end, and out of the harbor in one tack, or two, I think there's one little tack at the end. Then it came about that Marvin rotated helmsman, and after all the people who had raced with him before in the Bermuda race and stuff like that had taken a shot at it. He said, Steve, why don't you take the helm? So I took the helm in this beautiful big boat, and I had a great experience in light weather in Long Island Sound. So I could see puffs coming, and I knew to anticipate the puffs. Every puff is a little lift, anticipate the puffs, and anticipate it leaving and head off just before the puff finishes. And we really picked up a lot of boats doing that. And from then on, I was the starting tactician and main helmsman for Nirvana for the next 3 years, from '82 through '85.